It's my pleasure to welcome you to this presentation. Thanks for taking time to be here as we explore the magnificent world of the data science. As Anthony said, my name is Artem Pochechuev, and I'm head of the data science department at Cortlex. I've got over 15 years of experience in the software engineering industry. I joined Cortlex in 2018 as a full-stack solutions architect, and Cortlex, is a cutting-edge technology company transforming global businesses through innovations. We'll talk a little bit about what is the best way to describe the data science and where its superpower come from. Also, I'd like to share with you some showcases of our experience in order to demonstrate our approach of implementing data science solutions. And everything, whatever we facing on this path. So, speaking of challenges, I would mark that as a separate one. The challenge of defining what it is. You know, sometimes I ask this question even on job interviews. It may sound ridiculous, like I'm asking a musician what the music is, but data science doesn't have a canonical definition. Precisely speaking, it has in the Wikipedia, but it's kilometer long and explains almost nothing. So everybody defines it by their own way. And as a person who often speaks about data science and explains what it is, I came up with a one-word definition what the data science is. And the word is answers. Whereas software engineers tend to ask millions of questions, how this should work, where to put that, what would you do from this or that, and so on, data science provides answers. Want to know how long your customers will stay with you? Enjoy your coffee. The answers soon will be dug out from data. Then you'd like to encourage them to stay longer, buy more? Just take a break. All the customers in the database will be precisely analyzed and with all conclusions made. And now you may ask me about where all those answers come from. Well, all those fancy AI tools like self-driving cars, ChatGPT, aforementioned, and the data science itself, their very existence is possible only because of the machine learning. This term also pops up quite often in various contexts. And once again, I came up with a peculiar explanation. I suggest to consider it like a bunch of sophisticated math which must be applied to the data by some peculiar way, and the results are known as so-called trained model. And it actually is able to give answers. But now you may ask me why we are talking about data science if machine learning does all the work. That's because data used to come from hundreds of sources, in dozens of forms, in structures and types, though it can't be just directly fed to machine learning. Because it's like a cooking soup. You can't just put all the ingredients in the pot without washing, peeling, chopping, stewing. Nobody just gonna like that sort of soup. So for the data, it's the same thing. So, when some geeky-looking folk proclaims, not Eureka, but that this is the end, because the model is trained and predictions are correct, what next? Well, here I tend to use my favorite joke and say that that's a great job, no doubt, but what are users supposed to do with that? Jump on it? So, the essence of data science is to care about the whole cycle of a solution from the very basic idea to the ROI impact measuring. And as you can see on this slide, machine learning takes only 20% of the whole data science work. The other 80 is a meticulous work with the data. Yeah? Everybody recognizes Prêtre principle, I assume. And on next two slides, I'd like to introduce you a couple of selected projects. I select that for you as an interesting example of our data science experience. So, behold, cardiovascular diseases prediction project. Cardiovascular diseases is one of the major problems in the world. According to WHO, it's taking an estimated almost 18 million lives each year, which makes it responsible for almost 30% of deaths worldwide. That's why there are numerous data sets available containing patients' data, along with numerous attempts to solve this task from a data science perspective. And data science progress actually here is impressive. And that's why a healthcare company reached us with the request to cover their need in that scope. This project aimed, first of all, to raise awareness among patients about their personal risk of that sort of disease. And of course, the second goal of this project is provide all possible facilitation to doctors on a research level with bringing them, whoa, that's not supposed to be happen, sorry guys, with bringing them how various factors affect this disease per se. And on service level, they aim to highlight that important factor for a doctor right after patient profile is opened. And the next project is, I call it like CE3R level evaluation. That's reference to a common European framework of reference for languages, which is aimed to assess the knowledge level of a particular language. It was implemented by request of Languages Learning School for the English language only as a pilot one. And the idea was simple, just assessing the speech complexity in the movie by analyzing provided subtitles file. It meant to be a configurable solution capable to consider various aspects such as grammar complexity, dictionary size, and so on. And by the design, it should have contained the ground base for potential evolve. The most important project, part of any project, of course, the outcomes. What did we get at the end? So let's see. For CVD prediction, it is first of all the inspired patients who's got more motivation to care about their own health and do regular tests and checkups. Then it's of course doctors, precious time saved, and the researchers who've been provided with some insights about how actually machine learning made this or that prediction about cardiovascular disease risk. And the fun fact I would like to share, I found it during the project about dark chocolate, which has a positive impact on cardiovascular system, which is good news for people who, as me, had a sweet tooth. And considering that I'm in Belgium, I'm going to severely improve my cardiovascular health. Regarding the CFR level evaluation project, there was a tangible improvement of customer experience, and students become really more inspired to learn languages with just watching their favorite movies. These two factors were tracked by mainly testimonies. And one more fun fact I'd like to share to you. That's about the sentence represented in this box on the right side of this slide. When I did a preliminary research, I discovered that three different text analyzers give three different CEFR estimations of that sentence, from A2 to C1. You can imagine that? That actually emphasizes the complexity of tasks, like evaluation CEFR level of particular text. And now we've come to the exciting topic, how to do all these things in a cost-effective manner, what was been promised in agenda. Well, unfortunately, there are no easy way to have it in project. It can't be just adopted like some useful scheme or practice, or just given as a requirement. It's also impossible to demand it from people, like, hey, do it cost effectively. By my expertise, it's more like the way of thinking. But it would be a Sisyphean task to make the entire project cost effectively all alone, just alone, when it's only you who have that way of thinking. Looks like a dead end, but it's really not, indeed. Indeed, I can't make my team think like I do, but what I can do is grow it like a part of the culture. And it's a not difficult task for me because I have a good foundation for that. I build this culture on the Cortex values: ownership, transparency, and service. And it works precisely like that. The ownership means that the team member does care about what's happening in the project and won't be just passing by, for instance, something which is broken or malfunctioning. And because of the transparency, I'm sure that this team member will raise this question or ask for assistance to improve it. And service motivates people to understand the impact of such an action on the entire project. And, well, here I must warn you guys, you are in grave danger because you can die from boredom because we are approaching on the most boring side in my presentation, most boring slide. Well, it's mainly not about the slide, but about the speech. Choosing the best data science technique is the most important thing which has a significant impact on the very start. Here on this slide, you can see various aspects of data science solution, and I'll tell you about their impact on particular project by examples. So let's begin. Accuracy and precision. If our solution predicts something, we do care about how precisely it does it. And choosing the right technique, best technique, is vital here. For CVD prediction, cardiovascular disease prediction, we achieved actually 92% of accuracy in prediction the risk of heart disease, and it was possible by carefully choosing a suitable algorithm. At the same time, for CEFR evaluation, we improved it by combining two various techniques of evaluation. One of them based on dictionaries, like we're assessing the CEFR level of words in the dictionary and then calculating the main level of text. And another one is on teacher experience, which is a kind of typical example of how data science works. there is some work done by humans, then we feed up machine learning with it, and that's it. Our model just learn it how human does it and trying to repeat this behavior. So those two techniques was suggested, and even, well, if one of them gives you a little bit less precise accession, you always can try another one. The next aspect is insights and discoveries. It depends on how sensitive our solution should be to anomalies and how good it should be in detecting patterns. For cardiovascular diseases prediction, we provided a comprehensive analytics about the importance of every risk factor. And for languages project, we discovered common errors and patterns of assessment CE/VR level. Well, you can say that we just learned it from the mistakes made by other people, which is also quite valuable way to learn something, not only for machines but for human also. And one more aspect I would like to highlight to you is interpretability. In case if we need to understand how machine learning makes a decision, that's also vital point to cover. It was actual for CVD prediction project, and we gathered all the possible interpreting. It was possible that. And here is a good point to mention a connection between all those aspects. Because, for example, neural networks, they are not able to provide any interpretation. So, if you need a good precision and accuracy, that's actually the point of making decision, making choices, seeking for compromise. Because, as I said before, those factors are dependent on each other. You got the neural network, so, well, goodbye interpretability. You wanna best accuracy and precision, so you kinda have less choices for choosing the way how you do your machine learning work. And the last one, domain relevance. By considering some domain or industry insights, we can choose more suitable technique specifically adapted for that. It wasn't actual for CVD prediction because we have no any medical education and haven't done any medical research, but for a CE/VR level evaluation project, we used a separate dictionary for slang, and we also adopt a phrasal verb detecting technique, which was a kind of breakthrough in making prediction better based on domain relevance insights. No, you're not going to switch. Okay, I'll help. Yeah. And then let me to tell you about cost effectiveness in numbers. There are several selected use cases, shows how the right culture works for that. In one case, it was an excess workload in AWC environment, spotted and fixed by our engineer. And it is a bright example actually because it cost client 5,000 euro per month, this particular excess load. On another occasion, there was a suggestion to client to rewrite a solution from Java to more suitable for that purpose Python. And in the end, it wisely reduced the entire cost of computing on production infrastructure. Latest example happened recently when our engineers spotted a flaw in address recognition algorithm and fixed it, of course. it made a 10% improvement to precision, which is enormous progress on given amount of data, like dozens of thousands separation daily. And my conclusion from those cases, like cost effectiveness is a bargain, but capable team is priceless. And now we came right to the summary part. So let me summarize a bit what we've been talking about. Data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence are meant to solve unsolvable tasks. Means where traditional programming is not capable to do it, like image recognition, fraud prediction. Then it goes unlock hidden sites. Well, data analytics is a valuable part of data science. What can I say more here? And then I would like to mention the driving innovation and growth. When lots of people keep talking about spooky AI, the data scientists keep bringing a use to business. All the same like years before. And the cost effectiveness is good when it's a way of thinking. And a great thing to have it in project, but it requires a capable team of engineers and well-shaped goals along with the right culture. So, it's time for me to stop talking and hear out your questions. Thank you guys. But questions?
Who has some questions? No, we want to use this one. It's just for the recording. We're making a recording, so we have the question as well recorded. So I will throw it now to you.
Thanks for an interesting talk. So I guess all the models and examples that you gave, that's code and models that you coded yourself. What is your opinion about all the auto machine learning and instant machine learning tools?
Thank you for this question. That's a really interesting topic. I would highlight it like a part of maybe cost effectiveness concept, like AutoML. And as any tool, it requires being used wise. So it's an actual, quite actual thing for any sort of machine learning. The GIGO principle, garbage in, garbage out. So in that case, AutoML should be also used quite carefully. So in order to, reduce the load on engineers of all these routine tasks and so on, it's a brilliant thing. And the even more better thing, I would say that we actually came there that machine learning becomes a boring thing, and we can delegate some boring stuff from it to automatic processing. So that's a good thing. No any questions more?
From the audience on the live stream, so maybe you can throw it again to me. Okay, thank you. So, one question from the live stream. What were the results in the end of the project? What did customers get in the end? API, datasets, answers? That's the question from the live stream.
Well, first of all, it depends on the goal. What was your goal? If your goal is predict something, so the result is prediction. If your goal to provide, for instance, dashboard data analysis, so that's the result. So, that's highly depends on what do you have in the beginning. Like, for instance, in the previous example, when I just was joking about what our customers supposed to do with it, jump on it, that was about the model. So yeah, we train the model, it does cool predictions, it's precise, it's everything, maybe it detects fraud perfectly. But, well, since we didn't bring it to production and didn't integrate into customer system and didn't provide the users a way to use it and get these predictions, so what the user of this model. So in that case, the result will be like customer experience. For instance, in that case with CFR assessing, it was the user interface where user can come, upload a subtitles file and get the CFR prediction along with text analysis. There are some amount of verbs, nouns, whatever else, and yeah, the CFR level predicted by trained model.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the audience? I don't see any from the live stream, so thank you very much. A big applause.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yes, so now we welcome to the stage. Well, I'm going to give you this one as well here. Right there. Is it okay?
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Thanks.
I don't think the clicker is working, so you have to use the keyboard, but anyway. Give a big applause, please.
Yeah, I hope my voice doesn't give out halfway through the presentation, but we'll give it a go. All right, so I'm here to talk about two particular case studies and how data science can make a good product even better. So, quick introduction. Sorry, oh, that was loud. I'm going to briefly explain what dyslexia is, what we can do to help, and then we'll dive into the case studies. So, who am I? Well, William. I'm the head of development at Sensotec. I've been a software engineer for over 25 years. I joined Sensotec last century. I started out writing DOS drivers, and here I am talking about data science. So, to clear up some confusion, I'm the head of development of Lexima. The product we make are branded with Lexima. So in the beginning, there was Sensotec. We developed software for people with visual impairments and learning impairments. Lexima, a Dutch company, specializing in learning impairments. And then two other companies also split between visual and learning disabilities. We are now all joined into the All Kind group. And from that, we now have two brands. So, Sensotec brand is doing all the visual disability stuff. The Lexima brand is all the learning disability material. So, despite being the head of development at Sensotec, I actually develop also for Lexima. The dev team is a mix of Sensotec, a big helping hand of Cortlex, and some people at Lexima. Right, so let's get on with it. What is dyslexia? Well, it's a learning disability. It has a specific neurological basis. But before we dive into the disability part, let's just focus a bit on what is different about dyslexics. They are incredibly reliant and very good at pattern recognition. Keep that in mind, it will return over and over again. So, they also are very good at spatial reasoning. So, those of us who have done spatial geometry, etc., you will lose to a dyslexic most of the time. They're also very good at lateral thinking. And now this is important. 1 in 10 people are affected by dyslexia. So there is at least one or two members in the audience who will have it. Doesn't mean that you will have it severely. It can be just light. It's not a crippling disease or something. Now, what is the problem? Dyslexic, they have trouble with reading comprehension. Now you may have remembered that some time ago in the news there was a lot to do about the reading comprehension of Belgian students. I'm not saying that they're all dyslexic, 1 in 10 remember, but reading comprehension is vital. They also have problem reading without mistakes, reading at a regular pace, spelling, writing, that all ties in back into reading comprehension. And I go out of my way to say this, dyslexia does not affect intelligence. Why do I say this? Because we still keep encountering teachers who say, they're not dyslexic, they're dumb. Still happens. So, let's go for some audience participation. Anybody who would like to try and read that? Anybody? No. The strange person on the front row who is absolutely, totally not my brother. Gibberish? Gibberish? Yes, and I know my brother and he's an excellent reader. So now imagine that those letters are jumping around. What was the text? So imagine my brother is in school, he has to read that, he said some gibberish. So what if I as a teacher now ask a question of him about that specific gibberish? He will fail, definitely. So this is not what every dyslexic sees, just for clarity. This is a simulation of how it would be for a dyslexic. So what can we do to help? Well, first the bad news. Prevention, there is no cure. Once you have dyslexia, you have it for life. But the sooner you start training, so the sooner you detect it, the sooner you start training, you can reduce later problems. Then how can we remedy it? With intensive training, we can reinforce the pattern recognition, the patterns of words. So remember I said they're very good at pattern recognition? That's where it comes into play again. So, of course, there are people, especially later in life, when the dyslexia diagnosis was made, they've never had any prevention. They certainly didn't have any remedial support. So what did they do? Besides, remember, early training reduces, not eliminates. It reduces problems. So then we use special tools to help them compensate for their disability. Now, I'm going to over some of our products just to see how it's built up. So prevention, at the early stage, we teach young children how to deal with phonetic constructs. This is a letter, this is how it sounds. We're also, Elemental is one that we're making for the UK market. English is horrible when it comes to the relation between an actual letter and how it's pronounced. So, in combination with a tutor, we can reduce reading problems in the later stages of life, sometimes by as much as 60%. These applications adapt to their user, so they follow the pace. It's not, you have this linear progression and then all of a sudden you're hit with something that you can't solve. It always keeps pace with your ability. So for remediation, we have two, laser, game and blown. That's the system where we use visual dictation. Again, pattern matching. They see the word, they hear the word, then the word disappears, and they have to type the word. That's in a game environment because, hey, these are young children. But again, that's where the pattern recognition comes in. We also have a game for doing simple calculations. You have to guide your hero through a maze, because if you suffer with reading comprehension, how are you going to read a formula? So 1 plus 1 equals 2. But what if the plus suddenly looks like something different? What if the 1 no longer looks like a 1? How are we going to do that? So that's where Regenheld comes in to deal with that. So the biggest one and our flagship product is called Alinea. It deals with both reading, writing and studying. We use text-to-speech, just again because it's easier for a dyslexic to listen to something than to actually read it. We use highlighting. I will briefly go over it. We will encounter this again. And now for writing, we have basic spell checking. Nothing out of the ordinary, but our word prediction compensates for what a dyslexic would see or try to write. So in Dutch, if you say chocolade, you will use an SJ. So the word predictor automatically compensates for that common mistake. If in English you say everything, yeah, well, it will compensate for that and write everything. We have a bunch of study tools, all aimed at making life easier for a dyslexic student. So, for example, the mark and summarize allows them to make easy extractions. And now, recently, we had an entire new feature to make exams. Then we have our companion product, Web2Speech. Similar features, but this time it's a Chrome extension. Now, these were the subject of 2 data science projects. Let's start, and all our projects have their own proper project names. So we'll start with Galatea, which was using data science to predict words in Alinea. So one of the drawbacks of our word prediction is it's identical for everyone. No matter your level of dyslexia, it will just behave exactly like it does for the kid next to you. It also doesn't distinguish between subjects. Say you're writing something about geography, and suddenly it starts predicting chemistry. Bit awkward. So we had a bright idea. How about we create something that automatically adapts to the user's needs, that doesn't show a university level word prediction to somebody in first grade? And how about we make it so that it doesn't switch subjects all of a sudden, that it knows that you're talking about geography? So, data science, yeah. Python, yeah. Machine learning, cool. That's all easier said than done. So we started working on this, and we actually had a credible system. It was a server-based Python solution because everything we do is a web app. But here's the drawback. We quickly found out that we had too many large models, basically overloaded the servers. Trying to keep track of managing all those models was quickly becoming a job unto itself. And because it was a web app, we started looking at the costs and saw that the costs are actually increasing severely per user. So, second problem, more training. So Artem mentioned garbage in, garbage out. So we're doing a demo of our new smart word predictor. Somebody types, "My mother is," and the system said, "dead." So that wasn't really the reaction we were actually looking for. So the question was, who has been feeding that thing with data, and what did you use? So it's very important that if you create your models, that you know what it goes in. Garbage in, garbage out. But if you don't want it to suddenly say, "Your mother is dead," well, keep track of what you're feeding it. So we ended up with a solution that was very hard to use in a real world scenario without serious financial commitment. We may revisit this later. It would have probably worked well in a Windows environment, but that was not the question. The question was a web environment. So, on to the next project, Cheshire Cat. I will explain why it's Cheshire Cat later. So I talked about highlighting. So you see that little text from Red Riding Hood again. Now the whole sentence is highlighted. And the word that's being pronounced by text-to-speech is also pronounced. So it's reading once upon a time, blah, 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 blah. And it's now at the point middle. So as it reads, the green bar will move over the words, making reading comprehension so much easier. It's fantastic. It really helps with reading comprehension. But I told you Web2Speech is a Chrome extension. Now, you may think that's easy. Just parse the HTML. But have you ever looked at the content of a website? The HTML data, how it's written? There's a standard, but as Captain Barbosa said, it's more of a guideline. So we had cool JavaScript functions. Turns out that they were struggling to find the next element. Whether it was a sentence or a word, it's really tricky. We had another good idea. How about we build a text map of the document? So the first version worked reasonably well. But again, we were dealing with that problem of where do we find the word, for example, middle, in the right spot to highlight it. And we need to know exactly where it is. So, enter the master. Artem built a great system for a text map based on Python analysis of the text. So the reason why the project is called Cheshire Cat is because it takes 8 seconds, a bit, 8 seconds to parse the entirety of Alice in Wonderland in HTML. And it builds a map of all words, all sentences, ready for use for Web2Speech. Now, that's one part. It also came up with a system that is really quick at allowing us to quickly find that exact. If the word middle appears 17 times in text, not a problem. We can just go to the map, 15 words, 15th instance of middle, we need that one. And it instantly highlights that word. So, really amazing, really powerful. So, compared to Galatea, Cheshire Cat runs in the browser, so no server overload this time. The models are also a lot smaller. There's also fewer of them, so it's relatively easy on the network connection. We have a little hit at the start, but then it's cached and it goes really fast. We also have almost no maintenance. It doesn't need to distinguish between English or French, although it can detect the language. So costs no longer increase per user. And even complicated pages can be handled relatively easy. And this is only the beginning of what it can do, because we also now know exactly what a word is. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? What's its relationship? This is a noun about communication. So we have this text map that not only says this word is here, this word is there. We also know what kind of word and which context is it used. For somebody with dyslexia, we are suddenly advancing their reading comprehension by leaps and bounds. So, Artem talked about finding answers. So, yeah, both cases actually provided us with an answer. Galatea gave us an answer that didn't really solve the problem. So, when you do data science, ask the right question. It also was a while ago since we did that, so the technology didn't really fit the requirements. We had these high maintenance costs, so return on investment, was useless. Cheshire Cat answer solves the problem completely. We have a perfect match between technology and actual requirements. It's cheaper and faster to develop. It's cheaper and easier to maintain. Return on investment is magnificent. So, data science, I can tell you this, it's a force multiplier. You get access to the data, you can do fantastic things with it. However, it's not a silver bullet. It's not because you have lots of data that you're going to do, yay, data science, and you're going to get perfect answers out of that. Think about your questions. That's important. You really have to think about your questions. So how do we do all that? Well, set clear goals, manage your expectations, also discuss your limitations. How far are we going to go? Is this supposed to run in a web application? Think of that before you start doing data science. Learn from your mistakes. Model is dead. We also had another case where somebody who was training the model didn't really do a good job of it. So it was image recognition, and we needed about 500 pictures of various pages on a flat surface. And our trainer had the good idea to take 5 pictures and just copy them 100 times. Yes, exactly. So that model was next to useless. And then, yes, well, use your available expertise to its full effect. This time we had Artem. Come on, next slide, please. So, time for your questions. Now, I must say, unfortunately, Sophie, our head of product owners, can't be here. She's a trained speech therapist. She would have been able to go very deep into dyslexia if you want. So, if you have questions, keep them on the technical stuff. All right.
Does anybody have some questions for William? For Sensotec?
William, with how many people are you in the organization?
Are we talking developers or people in
overall.
general? I think we're about 150.
And it's all located in Belgium?
No, we have the Sensotec office is near Bruges. We have one in Antwerp and Namur, 2 satellite offices. We have the main Lexima office in the Netherlands, and then there's Sensotec the Netherlands as well, which is in Delft, if I recall correctly. So we're kind of spread out over Belgium and the Netherlands.
So I can imagine that providing this type of technology, we have of course data science technology, but you're also probably closely related to the medical sector, the therapeutical sector,
yes.
the education. Can you tell me? Can you tell us a little bit more on the ecosystem you are playing?
Yes, as far as that is my area of expertise. So we have, first of all, we're less in the medical sector than in the educational sector, because dyslexia is not really a medical problem. So we have the development team. We get our input. We manage everything with the product owners, who are all speech therapists or linguists. And then we have the various stakeholders who tend to come from a variety of backgrounds, but almost all educational. For example, the exam system has been developed in collaboration with Ho West and Ho Gent here in Belgium, and several other colleges and schools and universities. Now is being piloted in the Netherlands as well. We have several projects ongoing with universities, because all those, well, games I mentioned, they generate tons of data. Kid does exercises, we register the exercises, we register the answers, we mark if it's wrong, is it right, did he try on the second attempt, did he succeed on the third attempt. So we have this enormous set of data that is, as we speak, so being analyzed by linguists, etc. That's a next step, and I didn't mention this as an ongoing project because we're still in the discovery phase.
Mm-hmm.
But that is being looked at because we have huge amounts of data that, for example, can tell if a certain student is performing below or above the expectations based on his reading comprehension. So still want to mention it's about reading comprehension.
And that's my question, going back into data science. I got the opportunity to talk to several customers in the the last couple of weeks on the specific topic of data, and they all tell me we have a lot of data. We generate a lot of data, but due to the fact that we have different stakeholders into the company with different specializations, it is so hard to develop a kind of a plan, a kind of approach. Can you explain us a bit how you went through this at Sensotec on bringing all these different responsibilities together with their own specific goals and objectives, I suppose, to set up a plan, in fact?
We have what we call multidisciplinary teams, so the MDTs, as they're called, and those combine per project, product, so to speak, combine a host of people from different backgrounds, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, they determine the right question. What is the question we want to ask of the data? And that's now all being looked at. I can't say too much about what the right question is because I'm not a linguist or a speech therapist, but I do know that they look at these things from various angles. I do know, based on sample analysis of our data, is that, for example, you can see that a certain person will have a consistent error between H and B because they are very similar letters. So, what are we going to do with that? That's a question that is now being looked at. Yes, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to tailor the exercises more? Some of those things already do that. So Laser Game definitely does it, and BOW does it as well. So they adapt, but the adaptation can be, in our opinion, vastly improved by focusing more on data science.
Yeah. What I understood is you are using data science at Sensotec mostly for improving your products. Am I correct with that?
Well, yes and no. One part is definitely improving the products, better products, happier users. But there's also we have a project called Sauron, which is data platforms where we are going to do analysis of data, and that is not specifically to improve a certain product, but it's specifically to look at how the evolution of groups of users, how they are evolving, how is this going, what happens after a while. Of course, it's tied to our products because they are generating the data, but say, if you have somebody who has been using Blown for a year, what's the effect?
And the improvement of his reading.
Yes, so we can measure and we can actually direct people to, for example, we don't have contracts with speech therapists as such, but we can say, well, for this problem, go see a speech therapist because you are consistently still encountering that problem. That's what can come out of the data, but we have so much data.
Maybe a last question. Are you planning to use data science and the power of that to improve your, I would call it, sales and marketing initiatives to attract more readers and more patients more?
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And
yes.
even therapists.
Yes. So that's another part where we look at who's using it, looking at areas. Give a simple example. Why are we not selling in this province? What is the problem? Everybody else is buying it, so why not there? And then we can go in and start looking at the data. It could be that, for example, they are using a competing product. It's also possible. But it could also be that they don't really know that it exists. where our marketing has to sweep in and say, hey, have you heard about our product, and this is what they can do for you. So Saron is actually 3 different platforms, one that looks at marketing data, sales data, and one that looks at the actual exercise data. But that is ongoing. And that's one thing I'm going to say it one more time. Think about the questions you want your data to answer. Because if you ask the wrong question, you're definitely going to get the wrong answer.
We have one question from the live stream before we left.
Okay.
Sorry, William, but it's about a hot topic right now about AI. From the audience in the live stream, somebody asked which model did you use, and are you considering using one of the models from OpenAI, for example, one of the GPT-3 family?
Can I answer that question with another question? Which project was he referring to?
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't refer. Maybe in general, yeah. Maybe you can.
In general, we don't use any of OpenAI tools yet.
And are you considering to use these models?
At the moment, not really, because we are busy analyzing the data. Like, for example, Cheshire Cat would have no immediate benefit from something like OpenAI. It's data analysis. Artem, can you remind me of the library you used? NLTK, yes. I was going to say NLP. Our focus, except for the marketing and sales data, is mostly under the flag of natural language processing. So yes, at some point, some of those tools will come in handy, but they're not the focus right now.
Okay.
So, but definitely not ruling it out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Does anybody else? Okay, Steven, I can throw very high.
I'm not a technology person, I'm a designer, and I'm curious if there goes any attention from a design standpoint or point of view into the development of your products.
Absolutely.
Because I can see a lot of return on investment when it comes to technology, but still the end user will use a browser, and topics like accessibility, typography, and visual hierarchy, for example, are very important to the end user.
Absolutely.
Do you have like a design team in between?
Yes and no. We have dedicated UX designers, but they work under the guidance of, for example, my colleague Sophie. So how we work is there's a certain task that needs to be done. Sophie will sketch out what it needs to do, and then we'll then talk to the UX people and the developers and say, this is what I need. They will come back and say, well, how about this? And there's this back and forth, which goes really well, I must say. Credit to the developers and everybody involved. So we have this back and forth until we have something that A, looks attractive, and B, doesn't get in the way of understanding. So fancy UI is great, but if it hinders reading comprehension, then it's worthless.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can you give a huge applause for William? We have something very small for Artem and for William because of their wonderful presentation. Another applause, please, for both of the speakers of today. My pleasure.
So thank you so much, Artem and William. This is a small gift from us as a team. So a couple of weeks ago, we opened officially our office. And we were privileged that the artist Marijola Fontaine helped us by providing us with a nice art here in our office. And we published a book on her story, on her history. and also specifically on the artworks that are here in the office. The texts are written by Jan Koenot, who is a Jesuit and philosopher, and are really nice to read. Unfortunately, it's in Flemish, but I'm sure that you will have, you will have the tools to help you with reading. Now, for maybe a personal message and closing. I know very well what dyslexia means. Not for myself, but both my wife and my oldest son are unfortunately struggling with reading because they have dyslexia. And for our oldest son, we used your products when he was a small kid, and he was able to train and by using technology to bypass, in fact, his main challenges on reading. So today he's 23 years old, he's studying, but I'm pretty convinced that software can help a lot of young children overwhelming these challenges with dyslexia. And I think it's also something that for us in our purpose, it's important that by unleashing creativity and design, we can and we are able to develop a better self and a better society. And I think that Sensotec and the team of Sensotec is really a nice example to move forward on that path. So thank you, William, to have you here in Antwerp, and always welcome to come over. Artem, thank you so much for your deep dive into data science, and we look forward for next projects.
Thank you for a warm welcome.
Thank you.
So for now, we're closing. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. We're closing the presentation, but there is still some drinks, some snacks, and some breads. Some sandwiches, I have to say, upstairs. Yeah, well, go ahead. We can talk a bit after this session about data science, about Sensotec, and with each other. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you upstairs in the mezzanine. Thank you very much.